We're live.
Hello, everyone. We're back in our separate houses, so we have the split screen. Where's the screen? Split screen. And welcome to...
Dinner's going to be a little late tonight.
Except it's not, because we're making it right now.
We are. Episode 15.
15. That's 5 handfuls.
That's
or 3
awesome.
handfuls of 5, right? 5 handfuls of 3. Okay, math was never my...
Don't start with the math. La, 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 la.
Today, we are making beef stroganoff with buttered noodles, and it is delicious and super easy.
I can't wait. It smells amazing already, all the ingredients. Before we get started, what did we make last week, John? Wow, what didn't we make last week?
We made pozole. And you made carnitas to supply the delicious shredded pork to go in the pozole. And you know what? I got home and my kids were mad because they watched the show and they're like, you made pozole and you did not bring any home? So I had to go buy, where is it? I'm going to get it. Because now I have to make pozole. I had to get...
Another fan?
The jumbo hamina.
Hamina. Okay, so how many of you, John and I thought this was like just a joke between us, but not at all. How many of you, when we started talking about hominy, started going hamina, which one of my friends and viewers, Julia, I ran into her yesterday and we spent some time together and she started going hamina. And I said, what's that from? We couldn't remember what's from. But John, tell where we...
So I remember my friend Penny, when the 3 of us were all really good friends in high school, saying it. And so I asked her and she said it was Jackie Gleason from The Honeymooners. And she sent me a clip and it is the clip of Jackie Gleason going hamina. But it has nothing to do with hominy. But we sort of made a leap there.
Well, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
I can see. There it is.
You can't really see it that well.
Yeah. Anyway, that's him.
We'll have to put a clip up on the website.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be so techno savvy.
So we're making beef stroganoff. It's in my cookbook, and it's one of those easy, like 30-minute or less one-pan recipes. And then the noodles require a different pan, but then you put them together and you've got a delicious dinner.
Where's the cookbook?
Oh, the cookbook. Here it is.
Come on, don't miss your opportunity. Let's plug this thing. There it is. One-pan.
A whole box of them, Patty. I got a whole box of them the other day, and now I have 20 in my possession. It was like very exciting to open this box and go, I'm a published author. Like I wrote a book. So anyway, this recipe is in my book. So we're going to make it. Are you ready to get started?
I am.
Okay. So we're using one pan, a big old saucepan or frying pan. And the ingredients of this are super easy. So here's the thing, guys. Don't scrimp on the meat. Because when you slice beef thin, you want it to stay tender. And if you get a crappy piece of meat and you cut it thin and you cook it, it will toughen up like a rubber tire. And we don't want that because that's not good on our teeth or tummies or really just plain old, just not good. So do get a decent cut of meat.
John, that is so true because yesterday I did go with, I'm not going to lie, I went with the filet mignon, as it says in the cookbook, because I had terrible pockets in my teeth. And I thought I could go with the New York or the sirloin, but it's going to be my teeth, this beautiful filet cut nice and thin. And also the thing about the cut of beef reminds me again of last week when we did the carnitas and you buy that inexpensive Boston butt or pork and you cook the heck out of it. So that's a real contrast with a really nice quality piece of meat. You cook it from a short amount of time. The carnitas, cook it all day, and it was like just falling apart, super tender.
Yeah, and so because this is a fast recipe, we don't have time to cook the meat so for a long time. So we don't want a crap piece of meat. We want a good piece of meat, right?
Right.
Okay. So we are melting the butter in the pan, and while we are doing that, we're turning it down to low. We are mixing together in a big bowl. We're going to mix together flour and salt and pepper, and that's it. So I'm putting in the flour, and I'm going to put a little salt and pepper, and this is how we're going to coat the steak with this mixture. And I am going to share with you my little secret, and you probably already know this, but when you're coating meat or chicken to make fried chicken, this is your best friend.
You're right.
Okay? So, the recipe calls for a bowl. I'm giving you a hack right now. So, you get the Ziploc, you put the flour in the Ziploc, and then here's the steak. Look at, isn't that beautiful? Look at how beautiful that tenderloin is. That is just gorgeous, and it's going to be so delicious when we put it into the stroganoff. So I'm going to put it in the bag. I'm putting it in the baggie with the flour.
I like
the easiest way to coat something. So like if you make fried chicken, you can do it this way. You can certainly do this recipe this way, and all you have to do is put it in there and shake the bag. Remember shake and bake, Patty?
Yeah. My mother never did that.
Well, my mom wouldn't do it either, but for some reason, because of the advertising, probably, I insisted that we have it. And so she made it once, and it wasn't as good as her homemade, but for some reason I insisted that. And remember the slogan for shake and bake?
I don't remember it.
They always had this little girl, and they'd have the mom and the little girl, and the girl would go, and I helped.
Oh, that's right. And I helped.
And I helped.
You can use this for any kind of marinade too. When I do flat iron steak or skirt steak, or I always put the marinade in the baggie. It's also easier when you have it in the fridge and then you can turn it over and marinate it for a while.
And there, it's like all coated, and I didn't have to make a mess. It's all the mess was in the bag. So now we're going to cook the meat. And one of the things that makes this recipe so easy is you cook the meat and then you take it out of the pan and you cook the other stuff. Because remember, we don't want the meat to cook for very long because otherwise it will get tough. So we just cook the meat until it's browned on both sides, and then we take it off. We take it off the heat again. We put it in a bowl and set it aside for a couple minutes. But we keep this flour mixture because it's going to come back into the recipe later. Okay, so now we're making the meat, and again, like we don't have to cook this for very long. We're just sautéing it in this butter, and it's going to get a little brown and a little crispy. So I'm flattening it all out in the pan so it all cooks kind of uniformly. And our buddy Christina, hi Christina, how are you? She's asking, do you prefer organic free-range meat? And yes, I do, when I can afford it. So it's one of those things that I buy as healthy as I possibly can to feed my family, not only because it's healthier for them, but it's healthier for the world, and it tastes better. It just has more flavor. So thanks for asking that question. And so Kathleen, this recipe, my friend Kathleen is on. This recipe is in the book. You're right. I'm a cookbook author. Woo! And this is in the book. So get the book and you can learn how to make this too. Or check out the blog because the recipe will be on the blog later. So we're cooking the meat. Patty, how's yours coming along?
I feel like it's almost done. I'm turning them all over, and I feel like by the time I turn them all, they're going to be ready to take off.
Yeah, it cooks pretty fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, I love it. Well, anything cooking in butter is delicious, let's be honest.
Yeah, it smells really good when it's cooking. So this recipe calls for onions, garlic, mushrooms, tomato paste, and of course, what would stroganoff be without, Patty?
Some wine, perhaps?
Okay. And wine. I was thinking of sour cream.
Oh, yeah.
But wine is important too. And after all, this dinner's going to be a little late tonight, and we do have a theme, don't we?
We do. We do indeed.
I think, honestly, my next cookbook needs to be cooking with booze. because we seem to do a lot of that, and it's actually pretty good. So the meat is almost done and almost ready to take out of the pan, because remember, we just want it to barely cook so that it stays tender and delicious. In fact, you just want to cook the pink off the outside of the meat so that it just gets brown. That means that inside it will still be a little bit pink, if not red. But don't worry, we're going to cook it again later. And so you don't want to overcook it right now. Look at perfect. That looks delicious.
Don't tell John I was making faces at him while I was cooking.
So what's next?
I don't know. This is your recipe. Let's see. Oh, we're going to add the onion, the garlic, and the mushrooms to the pan.
Yep.
Right?
So we're taking all the meat out.
Yep.
Already all done.
Yep.
And again, we're going to put it back in later, so don't worry about it. We're just setting it aside for a minute. You stay right there, meat. And we're going to put in the onions. So we've got a small yellow onion, the whole thing chopped up. So we're putting that in. And 1 clove of garlic, because I don't seem to be able to cook without garlic unless I'm making dessert. So garlic it is. And mushrooms, right? So I'm going to turn this on. Back, I turned it off for the meat. So I'm turning it back on to medium high. And we're just continuing to cook the onions and the garlic in the remaining butter. So all the butter didn't get soaked up by the steak. So we're putting all that together. Mushrooms, onions, and garlic.
So John.
Yeah.
I can tell you that today I'm using, instead of fresh garlic, I am using garlic puree.
Oh, do you have it? Can I?
What?
So, is it in a jar?
No, it is from my friend, Chef Andrew Copley, who is a chef here in Palm Springs. He has a wonderful restaurant called Copley's. And
I love Copley's. I love that restaurant.
Oh, well, he has a cooking show, just like ours. It's exactly the same. So I can go and buy the food kits. Yeah, it's just exactly the same as this famous, super successful. Anyway, he does this great show. It's called My Dirty Apron, and I've been doing it to expand my horizons, get kind of like I feel like I'm taking a cooking class. Anyway, you can buy the ingredients as part of the deal, and he makes this garlic puree, and it is like, okay, don't tell John I said this, but I'm not a huge garlic fan. Like, I like garlic, but it doesn't, like, I don't love it as much as John does. But this pureeing it makes it more mild, and I'm going to learn how to make it myself, and we can bring it on the show. But I thought, I have gotten so much of this, I'm going to use it today. So, oh, Kathleen, I love your questions. John, I want you to take this one because you are the king of garlic. So anyway, garlic puree.
I do love my garlic. So Kathleen, there is a big difference. Fresh garlic is much stronger. And so when you buy the jar of garlic, which I use sometimes too, you usually use about twice as much because that garlic's been roasted. And when you roast garlic, it loses a lot of its pungency and flavor. It still has that delicious kind of buttery garlic flavor, but it doesn't have that sharp flavor that sometimes garlic has. So it's literally, if you're going to do it, I do it all the time, but it's about twice as much if you use the jarred garlic. I don't know, Patty, what are you doing? Are you using twice as much or the same amount with your puree?
He said, I emailed him last night to ask him, and he said that it's a teaspoon of the puree to the equivalent of a medium clove of garlic, but he said it is more mild. So again, that's kind of up my alley. You would probably use more of the puree. You're going to love it once we learn how to make it. So John, these onions and garlic and mushrooms are cooking for a couple minutes. Should I share? Because I know everyone's wondering, Patty, what's the history of beef stroganoff?
Please tell us the history of beef stroganoff.
All
Does
right.
it have to do with the Stroganoff family?
Jump on my punchline or what?
I'm sorry.
No,
I made it up because I was thinking of the Romanovs.
it was such a stretch.
The
Aren't they
royalty.
Romanov? I thought they were like the caviar people.
Romanovs were the royalty of Russia. That was like the Tsar of Russia before they had toppled the family and killed them all.
Yeah.
You should know that.
I do know that. There was like a Disney movie. I know that.
Anastasia.
Oh, man. Okay, so beef stroganoff was, yes, John is right, was created in Russia, but influenced by France. So in 1891, a French chef did a cooking contest in St. Petersburg, and he named this dish beef stroganoff. So it was supposedly named after this wealthy count, Alexandrovich Stroganoff. And legend was that the cook worked for the count, but here's the trick. Research shows that the count would have been 117 years old in 1891, and he'd been killed in battle 74 years earlier. So that theory doesn't really hold. But I think he just wanted to cash in on the Stroganoff name because they were one of the wealthiest and oldest families of the time. But however it came to be, it's perfectly expressed the French-Russian culture of the aristocracy of the time. So ground meat is very French, and apparently this recipe originated with mustard in the sauce, which was also very French, and then sour cream and beef together was very Russian. So it made its way to the U.S. through a wave of Russian immigrants who were the aristocracy or the more wealthy Russian immigrants, and they started restaurants, including, wait for it, the Russian Tea Room in New York City. And American servicemen who discovered it while serving overseas in World War II. So today is Veterans Day.
Today is Veterans Day.
Speaking of World War II, let's raise our glass. John's father and my father both served in World War II. My grandfather served in World War I, and my brother-in-law served in Vietnam. So if you're a veteran or you know a veteran, you love a veteran, cheers. Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you for your service.
Yes.
My dad served in the South Pacific and saw some pretty gnarly fighting. Like, he would never even talk about it. He was on Okinawa and in the army, so infantry on the ground, and I think it was pretty gnarly. So we didn't get a lot of history from him, but I have aunts and uncles and cousins and all sorts of folks who are still in the service today. So a toast to you. Thank you.
My dad had a different experience. He was also in the South Pacific, but he was in the Navy, and he was on a ship, and he got a Purple Heart. And the story he tells about the Purple Heart was that they were shooting onto his ship, and he had to jump up out of his cot, and he was naked, and he got shot in the leg or the butt. I can't remember which. That was Guy. It kind of fits. Those of you who've heard these stories about my father.
I'm not even. Yeah. Okay.
He lived on candy bars. That's all he ever ate because he was a picky eater. So good thing he married my mother with a fabulous cook. So, shot in the butt or shot in the leg. I'm going to say shot in the butt because only my sisters know if I'm telling the truth or not. So we're going to say shot in the butt.
Okay. So shall we dive back into this and do the next round of what we need to prepare?
I think so.
Okay, so now the onions and the garlic and the mushrooms should be a nice mixture. They should be the onions should be translucent, and it should have cooked down. It's probably about half as much as it was when we started. We're going to add beef broth, a cup of beef broth into this mixture. And we're going to add some tomato paste. And that gives it sort of a little bit of its red color, that red orangey color that Stroganoff often has. And so a quarter cup of tomato paste is going to go in here because that is delicious. And we're going to put some paprika. I think they say it that way in the UK, paprika. But here we say paprika. Paprika. So we're going to put that in. A teaspoon of that. And our sour cream. So a cup of sour cream is also going to go in here. And that's what kind of gives it its kind of creamy, delicious consistency. So I'm using a spatula and I'm mashing down this tomato paste so that it isn't a lump and it's now part of the sauce. And I'm adding the sour cream, which is going to make this all kind of creamy-licious. I love sour cream.
I do too. I was just thinking, I love sour cream. I put sour cream on everything.
It is really good. We put it on our pozole last week, didn't we?
We did. And then I had my carnitas and I made tacos and bowls and I put it in my bowl.
Okay, so now I'm mixing this all in, and I think it's time for our red wine. And so Patty, maybe you can tell us a little bit about our wine pairing this week while we add our red wine into the menu.
Oh, cool. Well, Psalm Sydney, so I hope you're following her on Instagram. Psalm Sydney has flown the coop. After almost 8 months home here with us in California, Sydney went back to New York, and she has started a new job as a sommelier. So she is back in the Big Apple, but she's still providing wine pairings. So she suggested a Cabernet or a Bordeaux, and let me tell you why. So
a hearty red.
A hearty red, a bolder wine with some tannin for the creamy sauce. So, and she says, Mom, beef absolutely calls for Cabernet Sauvignon. It's a classic choice. So I went to my Albertsons yesterday and I chose kind of a random, okay, well, she was very specific about a Napa Cabernet. Now, there are wonderful Cabernets all through California and obviously all over growing regions. We really like Sonoma cabs. We like Central Coast cabs, but sometimes it's just better to do what your daughter tells you to do, right? So I said, okay, I'm going big. I'm going to go for the Napa Cab. And I ended up finding a Hess collection.
I love Hess. I love Hess.
So many of you probably see Hess in the grocery store, and you get the Hess Select, the green Chardonnay, which is a great everyday, very drinkable wine. But I thought, you know what? I have a little history with Hess. This was one of the first wineries that my husband took me to on a date when we were first dating. And if you've ever been to Napa and seen the Hess winery and tasting room, I haven't been there in many years, but when we first went, it was like this castle up on this hill. It's on the top of Mount Veeder. It's the highest point in the Napa Valley. And the founder of Hess, Donald Hess, has a lot of his contemporary art collection there. So it's a really cool place. So that
art collection is world renowned. I mean, it's worth it. Even if their wine was shit, which it's not, it's delicious. But even if it was, going to that winery I hope it's still there.
It is, and they lost some stuff in the fire, but not there, at a different location. But okay. Yeah, that's why it's stuck with me all these years. So this is the Hess Collection Alami. I hope I'm saying that right. Cabernet Sauvignon. So this varietal is from a higher end selection. The winery actually Hess has 5 or 6 different collections, or selections they call it. So this is from the Hess collection, and Alami is the name of the vineyard. And according to their winemaker, this has notes of vanilla and oak with classic red fruit flavors set off by currant and blackberry, along with moderate, well-integrated tannins, just like Psalm Sid said it should, showing a round, plush mouthfeel. Doesn't that sound fun? A round, plush mouthfeel.
I love the words they use to describe wine. It never makes any sense to me. I either like it or I don't like it. And then there's all these adjectives. Oh, I taste a bit of dark chocolate and gasoline. It's like, no, I just taste good red wine.
Well, I agree. But actually, as I've gotten more from working with Sydney and learning more about wine, it's really fun to taste a wine and have someone tell you what you should taste. And if you really think about it, you can't taste it. But here's the other reason why I chose a Hess wine. I'm really into this biodynamic farming aspect of winemaking, and their vineyards are certified sustainable, and the winery has been a leader in developing green business practices. In fact, when Donald Hess acquired 900 acres in 1982 on Mount Veeder, as I said, the highest elevation in the Napa Valley. He set aside 600 acres as undeveloped land to support wildlife corridors, fish-friendly farming, and biodiversity. And his vineyard also, so their mantra when they began was to nurture the land and return what you take, which honestly gives me chills. And then in 2002, they helped develop the Wine Institute's Code of Sustainable Wine Growing Practices. So it's a landmark code of best management practices and promoting social responsibility and environmental stewardship. So I am all for supporting businesses and wineries that are taking care of our land and our environment. So
and more of them are. So It's been great. They've really started being very, very responsible, and Sonoma Valley and Napa Valley have really picked up on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it time for our secret ingredient?
Oh gosh, take it away, John. Okay. I talked about human flesh, and that was pretty good.
Yeah, so we have a theme going, evidently, because last week when we were talking about pozzoli, we were talking about hominy and pozzoli and how back in the day when that dish was originally invented, it was served with human flesh. So that sounds yummy, but we prefer to go with the carnitas version, thank you. And now I'm going to put Worcestershire sauce in our Stroganoff. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Worcestershire sauce because it's kind of an interesting thing.
How much?
So I don't think I've ever really looked at the ingredients in Worcestershire sauce. Have you? I'll bet you haven't. You know what it is? Fermented fish. Yes, your Worcestershire sauce is made from fermented fish in vinegar. Yummy. For 18 months, it sits in a cask fermenting so that when they open it up, it isn't really anything anymore. It's just a goop. And from that, they strain it, put it in a bottle, and sell it to you as Worcestershire sauce. And on top of that, more details about Worcestershire sauce. So people are like, well, where did the name come from? Well, it was invented in a British town called Worcester. There's also one in Massachusetts. But anyway, and Worcester sits in the Shire of Worcestershire. So that is literally where it came from, Worcestershire sauce. It's very hard to spell, and it's sometimes kind of hard to say when you've had a glass of wine. Worcestershire sauce. It's kind of like hamina, right? But it was invented by these dudes. If you can see this, Lee and Perrins.
Mr. Lee and Mr.
I don't know if anybody even else makes it.
Oh, they do. You
They
didn't
do?
know the story.
But these are the guys. In 1837, John Lee and William Perrins invented Lee and Perrins Worcestershire sauce. Now, how would you come across, how about we put fish in a barrel of vinegar and leave it for 18 months and then serve it to people to put in their food? Like, how would that come to mind for these two gentlemen in 1837? I don't know. Maybe you do. But nonetheless, I really like it. So I'm just going to forget everything I just told you because I like Worcestershire sauce and it tastes delicious in the stroganoff.
Okay, so I do know how it came about because I read the whole article.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. I was supposed to be doing something else. So the way it came out is they were doing something with this fermented fish and they accidentally left this barrel in their basement or whatever. And then they went back months and months later and was like, oh, well, I guess we forgot this one, and opened it up and tasted it. That's the part I'm not sure about.
That's the part. That's the part. I'm sorry. We forgot this barrel of fermenting fish. Let's taste
it. And it's called the original Worcestershire because somebody else, and I don't know if I'm saying it right, but that's how my mother said it, so that's how we say it, Worcestershire. Some other company does make it, but they say they're the original. John, how much are we putting in?
Oh, it's a 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce.
Okay, very good.
And I forgot to tell you to put some parsley in. So you put about a tablespoon of parsley in also.
Okay.
And then we are nearly ready to return the meat so that it gets coated. But before we do that, remember that flour that we left in the baggie or in the bowl, if you used a bowl, where we coated the steak? We're going to now put the remains of that, whatever's left, we're going to sprinkle that into our stroganoff because it's going to act as a thickener. And it's going to make this gravy even thicker so that when we pour it over those buttered noodles, it's going to be like, so creamy and thick and delicious. Okay, so did you do that part, Patty?
Yeah, but I didn't. Did we put in the paprika?
Yeah, that was ages ago. We did the paprika before we talked about the Worcestershire sauce.
Oh, I got sidetracked. That's so weird.
How weird for you. How weird for you that you got sidetracked.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm putting the beef back in.
All right. I'm coming.
And all we're going to really need to do with that beef is just to warm it back up in this gravy. So it's still I have it on medium low because I just want the beef to warm back up, to finish cooking. Remember, we didn't cook it all the way. So we want it to just cook just enough so that it's still tender and it doesn't go to the tough side. So we're just gonna I'm just gonna let it sit there for a couple of minutes while we let that bubble. And I'm gonna talk to you about buttered noodles. Okay, so our family, our traditional way of eating the stroganoff is over egg noodles. And then egg noodles that come in a bag, you buy them at the supermarket. They're usually on the bottom floor in the bottom shelf in a pasta section. And they're egg noodles. You can also use them to make chicken soup and a bunch of other things, but it really tastes good with the stroganoff on top. And I butter them. And so really, that sounds very fancy, doesn't it? Buttered noodles. But really, all I did, here's my pot of noodles. I pre-cooked them. And I put a couple of tablespoons of butter and some cream into it, and I mixed it all together. So it takes on this kind of rich, creamy flavor that goes really well with the stroganoff. And so I put a little bit of that in the bowl, the buttered noodles, and then I spoon the stroganoff on top. And I'll tell you that my kids and my husband eat that stuff up. They love it. So I'm ready to plate. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay. So one of the other things that we typically serve with this, and I don't know why I do this every time, but I always serve broccoli with this. And there's something about the kind of green of the broccoli and the noodles and the stroganoff with that kind of ready orange gravy that just looks really good together. It tastes really good together. So I'm going to put some of the noodles, and I'm going to put some stroganoff on this plate with some of that delicious gravy and those mushrooms. Those mushrooms cooked up nice.
Pretty.
And then, of course, just because we're fancy here, I'm going to sprinkle a little fresh parsley on the top, just so it looks pretty.
I love a good garnish.
And then I'm going to just put a couple of broccoli crowns, and we're done. Wait, I have to wipe this off.
Okay.
I spilled. And it's done. So look at that.
Wow.
Ta-da!
Ta-da.
There you go. Beef and broccoli, beef stroganoff with sour cream and Worcestershire sauce. And red wine, of course.
And red wine. That's the secret ingredient.
So that went quick, and we were talking. That was like less than 30 minutes. That's what I tell you. It's like super fast.
You like that.
The thing is, remember when you're slicing the steak or the beef that you're using, cut it in 1/2 inch strips, because if you cut it thicker, it's going to take too long and get all like gummy. And if you cut it too thin, it's going to be too thin and it'll be like rough. So you want it just in the middle there, about 1/2 inch thick. Delicious.
Kathleen, thank you so much for your comment. Kathleen commented how difficult it can be to be a female sommelier. And yes, Sydney and we're super proud of her. And she's only 27 and she's really done really well. And the benefits of having a daughter who is a sommelier are really quite fabulous. I was very sad to see her go back to New York, but just have to go visit her one of these days. So John, that was fantastic. So far, you're 2 for 2 out of your cookbook.
I know. What are we making next week, Patty?
Next week, I think we're doing our 3rd in a row from the cookbook. Then we're going to do some different stuff, but it's the white chicken chili, correct?
Yep, and that white chicken chili, I don't know if you've been watching on Facebook. People are commenting. Like I said, hey, I've got this cookbook, and people are commenting, is the white chicken chili recipe in the cookbook? And no joke, like 5 or 6 people, hey, but is the white chicken chili? So well, every year we have a big Halloween party. Of course, this year we didn't because of, the pandemic, but we have this enormous Halloween party, and we probably have like 40, 50 people in our house. And I make this enormous pot of white chicken chili, and it's become a tradition. And we have our friends over every year, and it's chicken chili, and I make cornbread, and our other good friend who's an amazing cook makes the most amazing macaroni and cheese I've ever had in my life. And we just eat and hand out candy and maybe have a glass of wine or 2. So that chicken chili has become quite famous. And again, it's in the cookbook, super easy to make, 30 minutes. If you like, so this is the cookbook. If you feel like you want to get a copy, that would be amazing. And I would be so appreciative. And it's available now on Amazon. So look by my name, John Bailey, or look by Cookbook for Men. And it will serve it up to you. And yeah, I would love it if you get a copy.
Well, just saying, I've never been invited to that Halloween party. We're just gonna let that slide. I'm coming next time. I love Halloween. It's my favorite holiday, and there was no Halloween for me this year. But anyway, so yes, next week's white chicken chili, and then save the date, Saturday. So Thanksgiving week, we're not going to have a show on Wednesday. Instead, we're going to have a show on Saturday, and we are going to make my mama's turkey soup. And I want to let you know, I had some in the freezer, and we ate it for dinner last night. And I had a huge pot, and my husband not only had seconds, he had thirds. That stuff is like crack. So we will give you the ingredients and the recipe beforehand. So if you want to cook along with us on Saturday, you'll have your turkey soup with your leftovers ready to go Saturday afternoon. And I'm just going to give you one tip now. You're going to want to save your carcass. I woke up in the middle of the night and thought, I have to tell everybody, save your carcass, because you're going to make your turkey stock with that carcass. And it's great. So anyway, I'm so excited about our first live cook along. So that'll be the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And then next week we've got chicken chili. And then we've got some things for the holidays. We're going to do an episode where we're going to give you some fun, easy appetizers. So and with a sparkling pairing, so you can have like a little cocktail, socially distanced, wearing masks, cocktail party ready to go in just, half an hour or so. So it'll be great. So I think that's it for this week.
Yep. All right. So thanks for joining us to learn how to make beef stroganoff with buttered egg noodles. And next week it'll be white chicken chili. And we so appreciate you watching the show and all the cool messages you've been sending. And it just means a lot to us because we're over here cooking it up and wondering whether anybody's watching it. It's nice to know people are. So thank you. And we'll see you next week.
All right.
Dinner's going to be a little late tonight. Bye. Bye.